We should start from Gufa, which is the two dots, the fourth line from the top of the page. This year, but we're going to do Chazorah first, a little bit on what we did yesterday, in Meretz Hashem, as is our minhag lately. Now we are doing this year Lil Nishmas of Imoyim Menachem Ben Akiva, Os Bas Shalom, Tzila Bas Ben Tzion, Sol Bas Moshe Lofuas, Yudis Bas Rivka, Sof Shachol Yisrael, Shmuel, Rafael Ben Aznan, Sof Shachol Yisrael. So yesterday we spoke about the status of Kodashim Kalim. Are they considered to be owned by their owners or not? 3-year-old sent me a very, very nice chart yesterday. You can send it to everyone if you want.
Send it out.
I appreciate that. My consent. Okay. So basically, Kodashim Kalim are lighter. Kishmam Kenhem, lighter than Kodashim. Kodashim Kalim are Shlomim. Kodashim Kalim are Kodashim that are eaten outside Beis Hamikdash, also by Kohanim and their family, including the female, including the women. Kodashim Kalim are, they're eaten by Israel also. The Chazeh v'Shok are eaten by the Kohanim, the chest and the pulka, and not of the chicken, of the animal, of the whatever that is, the goat, the cow, whatever that is. And the flesh is eaten by Israel. That is only, of course, after imurim are brought. What are imurim? Imurim are the part that's brought to the mizbech before any other meat is brought. Imurim are basically the kishkes, and imurim are only brought to the mizbech after the blood is thrown in the mizbech. When the blood is thrown in the mizbech, that's the most important point. Once the blood is on the mizbech, you can breathe a sigh of relief. That's when the korban is accepted and is good. The kids are Kodashim Kalim, halachically speaking, who owns a Kodashim Kalim? Excuse me, Kodashim Kalim, who owns a Kodashim Kalim? So basically it says, as long as the animal is alive, as long as the animal is not shechted and the blood wasn't brought, it's your responsibility to bring it. Of course, you can say the same thing about Kodashim Kodashim, but Kodashim Kodashim have a holier status. Kodashim Kalim are not as holy. Kodashim Kalim have the status of being owned by their owner. The person was Makdish, the Kodashim Kalim, Kodashim Kalim. Let's say the person was Makdish Shlomim. Those Shlomim, as long as they are jumping around in his backyard, they were not yet brought to the Mizbeach. Whose are they? They belong to the owner. And therefore, if my bull gored is, I have to pay him. Can he be Mekadesh a woman? Yes. Then we spoke about another type of Kodashim Kalim called Bechor. Bechor has a bit of a different story. Bechor is an animal that was born as a firstborn to an animal, to a cow or sheep or goat, and then the Bechor itself automatically, once born, belongs to the Kohanim in general, to Shevet HaKehuna. It belongs to a Kohen, any Kohen, not to one specific one. If the Bechor has no moom, if the Bechor has no blemish, great. You bring it to Beis Hamikdash, and who eats the flesh? Only the Kohen. Bechor is very extreme. In Bechor, only the Kohen eats the Bechor, nobody else does. As opposed to Shlomim, where the Bailim and the Kohen share after the Shechita, by Bechor, the story is the Kohen gets the whole thing. What happens if this blemish that fell into the Bechor while the Bechor is alive? What happens then? Directly eaten by the Kohen. It's owned by the Kohen eats the whole thing, Kishkas included. No Imurim, doesn't even see the face of Beis Hamikdash. And that's one of the differences between Bechor and the rest of the korbanos. The other korbanos, when there's moom, then you redeem it, right? The behemoth that has moom, you have to take the money, redeem it, and redeem the kedusha and other money. Then the behemoth that has moom becomes chulin, limited chulin, but chulin, and then anybody can eat it. And the money, with that you buy other korbanos. But by Bechor, you don't need to do the pidyon. You don't have to have the process of redeeming. No, by Bechor, automatically, once there's a hole in the, in the ear or something, whatever the moom is, something in the eye, then we say this is already considered the coins exclusively. Now, by the way, today we're going to talk about Maisel. Maisel is the other extreme, and it may be a surprise for you, but Maisel Behema, what's Maisel Behema? Everybody knows in Rosh Hashanah, we're all scared because maybe we're like the 10th sheep, right? You go one by one, and the 10th sheep gets a red collar or the red dye on the neck, and then the 10th sheep is brought to the Mizbeach. That's all very nice. Let me ask you a question. Is Meiser Behema a Matnes Kehuna? We know the Meisers is Matnes Kehuna. Tumas, Meiser, Schala, Bikurim. Is Meiser Behema a Matnes Kehuna? It's only yes or no. Why don't you give a guess? The worst comes to worst, you won't win the trip to the Caribbean.
Yes.
Votes. What? It's not a Matnes Kehuna. It's not the Matnes Kehuna. Meiser is eaten only by the Bailim. Meiser is the exact opposite of before. If Meiser makes it to Beis HaMikdash because it has no blemish, the Meiser is brought in the Mizbeach, and only the Bailim eats it. The Bailim and his family, they eat it in Yerushalayim between the walls of the old city, and that is Meiser. Masha'enken, if the Meiser, and similarly, if the Meiser has blemish in it, you know who gets to eat it? Only the Yisrael. Like a Kohen. Like a Kohen with Bchor is Meiser for Israel. That's the way it works. Okay? Very nice. Now, we said yesterday about the Bchor. We saw there was a question whether a person can sell or not sell a Bchor and be Mekadesh the Bchor, right? And it seemed like even Rabbi Yossi Aglili was saying, the Gemara was trying to say, even a controversial Aglili that says that Kodashim Kalim are owned by the Bailim. How come by Bchor we saw different voices? We said like a stira between Rabbi Yossi Aglili and Rabbanon. The answer was two answers. First of all, we said that we're talking in times of not Beis HaMikdash. In times of Beis HaMikdash, we say that it's owned not by the Bailim. Yeah, Bezman is there. It's not Roy La Krova. It's considered to be the Kohen's exclusive money because it will never make it to Beis HaMikdash, and then the Kohen can be Mekadesh a woman with that or sell it to another person. And then we said another statement that even Bezman is there. We say in times of Beis HaMikdash, in times of Beis HaMikdash, when is it considered to be the ownership under the ownership of the Bailim in times of Beis HaMikdash? If in Chutz La'aretz, a person in times of Beis HaMikdash lives in Bavel or in Rome, in Beis HaMikdash, if you live in Chutz La'aretz, even in times of Beis HaMikdash, then the Bechor is not supposed to make it to Beis HaMikdash. In other words, either you live in 2021 where there is no Beis HaMikdash, unfortunately, or you live in times of Beis HaMikdash where in Chutz La'aretz there is no Beis HaMikdash, your Bechor is not supposed to make it there. In those cases, we say the Kohen can use the Bechor and be Mekadesh a woman and sell and wheel and deal. Otherwise, no. But if it's in the times of Beis HaMikdash in Eretz Yisrael, then Bechor does belong to the Kohen. The Gemara says, what? Basically, we kept saying that it is. The Kodashim Kalim is the money of the owner. And so the Gemara, Bechor is different. Why? Bechor is Matnes Kehuna. Matnes Kehuna means that this is something administrated to the Kohen, like a daddy spoon feeding his child. He only gets the Bechor for the purpose of his own ownership for eating, but he can't do anything else with it. And therefore it's not considered as is. Just like we said about what? Remember? What did we say according to B.S. Glili after the blood was given and after the Imurim were brought up, Muktal, and then the Kohen eats the Kodashim Kalim? Can he be Mekadesh a woman with that? No. Why? Spoon feeding. Mishulchan Gavoya Kazochu. That's a proper word. They only get it not in order to do whatever they want. They get it only in order to eat. It's a permission from them, from Hashem, to eat the korbanos in a limited way, but it's not under their full ownership belonging to them completely. Okay? So again, when we talk about shlomim, then we say, surely Rabbi Yossi Glili says it's completely yours. Your soil, regular soil, your makli shlomim, what do you mean completely yours? I mean, eventually we'll make it to the Mizbeach, yeah? But as long as it's by you, then it's your behema to sell, to buy, and to be mekadesh a woman, and if anybody gores it, he has to pay you. Masha'enken, by Bechor, which is a Matnes Kehuna, something given from Hashem to the Kohen, is supposed to Shlomim, which is the other way. Shlomim, I'm giving something to Hashem. He was mine all the time, the entire life. One sunny day, I had a good mood. I decided to Makdish Shlomim. I'm going next week to Beis HaMikdash, whatever, for Yom Tov, something like that. Okay? Then we say it belongs to the person. But if this is something that Hashem gave the Kohen, like a Bechor, it's a gift given from above, that gift is limited, and it's not considered as money of the Kohen. That's what we said so far. Now we'll continue. Yes, sir. Right, sir. Let's start the shiur now. Gufa, 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 gufa. The fourth line from the top of the page. What's gufa? What does gufa mean? Very good. Baruch, you get a brownie. Gufa, which means we're now focusing on something that was mentioned before, but Agav, now mentioning it as a focal point. Now it's going to the center stage. Gufa u'malam al ba'Hashem. Yeah, what does malam al ba'Hashem mean? We're talking here about a person who's not ma'il ba'Hashem. The pasuk describes a person who gives pikodon, deposit, to his friend. Yeah, and nobody knows about it except for them. And then the friend who keeps the deposit, the guardian, the custodian, lies through his teeth and nishma l'sheker, and lies, and he's making a shvua l'sheker, and then he admits that he lied. What does he have to do? Brings a korban osham, and choimish has to give back plus a fifth and everything. Now it says Mo b'Hashem. He's embezzling b'Hashem. What is? I mean, not chas v'shalom. What does Hashem have to do with it? Hashem has to do with everything, but this is not Hashem's money. What does it come to say? Kodashim Kalim That comes to include, to bring in more, to tell me that if the person deposited Kodashim Kalim, which do go to Hashem, that's where Hashem enters the story. The Kodashim Kalim, such as Shlomim, Kodashim Kalim. Let's just say Kodashim Kalim now. I have my Shlomim. I have a Bemis Shlomim. I want to bring it on Sukkot. I want to bring it to Beis Hamikdash. But now it's summertime. I go to the Tzivirim like a good boy. Now I want my sheep to be kept in my friend's living room as a pikodon. And then he did something. He stole it. I don't know what he did with it. He stole it further. And then he's lying to me. Even in this case where I deposited Shlomim, the Shlomim, which are La Hashem, are considered mine, that I will demand it back from him and he'll have to pay me. In other words, this is a very interesting way of the Torah to tell me that Kodashim Kalim, for example, Shlomim, belongs to who? To the owner. The same thing for Kiddushin, for goring, getting the compensation, everything. That's what basically comes another opinion. Ben Azai Omer Labus is a Shlomim. Nazai says Labus is a Shlomim. Yeah, Ben Azai comes and says a tweak on Rabbi Yosef Glili. He says, you know, the Torah is coming to tell me Shlomim. Well, Shlomim are Kodashim Kalim, but Shlomim are one type of Kodashim Kalim. You know how many Kodashim Kalim there are? Just Kodashim Kalim are Shlomim, B'cho, we mentioned, Maisel, right? Pesach also, right? Maybe I forgot one, but that's what I remember, okay? So now, Shlomim, this is the korban that belongs to the Bailim. Now, that's what Ben Azai says. Abba Yossi ben Dostoi says, again, now he's talking about Ben Azai. Lomo Ben Azai, ela bibcho bilvad. He argues and he says, you know, what Ben Azai said was only regarding B'cho. Yeah? Okay, interesting. Not Shlomim, but B'cho. B'cho is the one that is considered to be under the ownership of the Bailim. B'cho is the one owned by the Bailim. Yeah? The opposite of what we said. B'cho is the one that's owned by the Bailim and not anything else. This is the end of the Brisa. Very interesting Brisa. In other words, the question is, who's considered to be by the ownership of the Bailim? Is it generally Kodashim Kalim, maybe Pesach, everything? Or do we say Shlomim? Or do we say B'cho only is considered owned by him and not other ones? If you are confused, the Gemara will explain everything now. This was the Brisa, now we're going to explain the Brisa. Mal says, Anonymous Amoira is now talking, the narrator of the Talmud is now talking. Ben Azai Omer L'Rabus is a Shlomim. Ben Azai says, you know, when Ben Azai says L'Rabus is a Shlomim, what does that mean, L'Rabus is a Shlomim? L'mi'utimai. When you said Shlomim are the ones included in the list of the ones owned by the owner, what are you coming to exclude? Shlomim, yes, as opposed to who? Which other korban are you coming to kick out of the list? Which korban, which Kodashim Kalim is not considered to be yours? Ilema, if you want to tell me, if you want to tell me that Shlomim are owned by him and B'cho is not owned by him, if you're going to say that, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to say Shlomim are owned by the owner while B'cho is not owned by the owner. Why? Why is that? And by the way, to reconcile the previous sugya to now, I think the Gemara is not talking about the Kohen. This is probably talking about Israel, who has a B'cho in his backyard, and eventually it doesn't have moom. It's a good, nice B'chor, which will eventually make it where? And will go where? To Beis Hamikdash. Very good. So such a B'chor, we say that B'chor doesn't belong to the owner, it belongs to Kadosh Baruch Hu, the B'chor, but Shlomim are owned by the owner. Doesn't make sense. Why not? Hashta, now the Gemara is going to say, Belabatishly speaking, I didn't see any meforshim here much, really, but the way I understand it, I'll read it, then I'll tell you the way I understand it. Uma Shlomim, if Shlomim, let's look at Shlomim up close. Let's give a good close up on Shlomim. Sheteunim smicha. What the Gemara is about to say now is that Shlomim basically are holier than B'chol. That's the trend right now. That's the very unilateral way of looking at it now. Shlomim are holier than B'chor, and I'll prove it to you. Why? Shlomim have three things that B'chor doesn't. That's 3-0. We're not talking about Chelsea here. We're talking about holy things. Ma Shlomim sheteunim smicha. Shlomim, you have smicha. What does smicha mean? Not to become a rabbi. The owner of an animal, of a korban, that brings a korban, either chatas, osham, oilo, shlomim, he has to do smicha, put his hands on the head of the korban before the korban is shechted, right away before the korban is shechted, very, very close to the time of shechita, and he says whatever he has to say. If it's chatas or osham, he makes a vidui. I turn on the light on Shabbos. Osham, I stole my friend's deposit. And if it's what? If it's shlomim, toido is the type of shlomim. Well, thank you, Hashem, for saving me for going into an Arab village and nobody did anything to me, a hostile place. Oh, mazel tov. I make a smicha and do whatever I say. Masha'en ken, b'chor and meiser, there's no smicha. But b'chor and meiser, there's no smicha. So you see, b'chor is of a lesser level. B'chor is no smicha, and shlomim do. Ha, 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 bam, bam. And also the Nesachim, also Shlomim have Nesachim. Shlomim have Nesachim. Nesachim are the libation. Now we know what it means. Libation, of course. You go to the store in Harlem and tell the guy, give me some libation. Everyone knows libation means, which is what Nesachim are. So we need to have the translation of libation, of course. The kids of Nesachim is what? The wine that's poured on the Mizbeach, in the left over there, the when you turn left in the Mizbeach, there's the hole, and there the hole with the wine goes in, you pour the wine for oila, for shlomim, for the nice korbanos. The korbanos are coming for goodwill. Osham, chatas, they don't have nesachim. You don't bring a gift with chatas and osham, which are hardcore sin, in order to atone for a sin. And also, B'chol doesn't have nesachim either. So Shlomim, bingo, Shlomim is another advantage over B'chol. Shlomim is one of the korbanos, Shlomim and Oila, maybe other one, I don't think, that have nesachim, and B'chol doesn't have nesachim. And the Tnufas Chazeh V'Shoik, also Tnufas Chazeh V'Shoik. What's Tnufas Chazeh V'Shoik? It says that the Kohen and the Bailim together, they take the Chazeh, the chest, and the Shoik, which is the thigh, and they put them one on top of the other. It goes out of Beis Hamit B'Chaim with a chest under the shoik. The shoik is on top of the chazeh in the bottom, and the bailim holds his hands with the coin, and then they turn it around. Then the chazeh is on top. When the chazeh is on top, the chest and the shoik in the bottom, then they pick it up. The coin and the bailim together, they hold it underneath, and they pick it up. Up Tnufa and the other one upwards and sidewise, like lulav more or less we do on sukkahs, They do this way and that way, backwards and forwards and up and down. That's Tnufa. Then again, they turn the chozeh to the bottom and the shoik to the top. And then what happens with that? Chazeh v'shoik by Shlomim. In the case of Shlomim, goes to the kohen. Chazeh v'shoik goes to the kohen in Shlomim. In Shlomim it goes to the kohen. In any event, B'chor doesn't have that. B'chor doesn't have Tnufas Chazeh V'Shoik. They have that, the Shlomim, and B'chor doesn't. Wait a second. So if Shlomim, which are holier, those three things were indicators that Shlomim has all these extra frills on the 5-star treatment, which means Shlomim is super holy. And yet, I'm continuing the Gemara now, moment Bailim, we say that belongs to the Bailim, even though the kedusha is higher, and I would connect it more to like Kodashim, it's the higher kedusha, and yet we say that it is the Bailim's B'chol Mibaye, B'chol which is less Kodosh. Needless to say that B'chol, of course, belongs to the Bailim. The assumption is the less kedusha, the more it belongs to me, and less to Hashem. Right? That's understanding. There's a very, very interesting Rashi here, which unfortunately, even with the help of many Rishonim Nechorim, we don't understand this Rashi. Rashi says, if you look at Rashi B'chol Mibaye, Rashi B'chol Mibaye is right, mamish, the same line as the words in the Gemara B'chol Mibaye. B'chol Mibaye says Rashi B'chol B'chutz Haaretz Kol he says, I'm missing something here. Rashi says we're talking about B'chor Chutz La'aretz because it's a B'chor Chutz La'aretz, which will never make it to Beis Hamikdash because B'chor is from Baltimore or Boston or Birmingham are not welcome in Beis Hamikdash, right? neither from Baghdad, Beirut, or Bucharest, or Budapest, or Bangkok, or Beijing. Yeah, no, they're not welcome, or Baku. You don't accept korbanos from all these places if they are bechor, and therefore so the kohen will never make it; they'll never get it anyway, and that's why the bechor is not as holy as shlomim. So shlomim do make it. Shlomim do make it from chutz laaretz to Beis Hamikdash, while bechor doesn't. My question on Rashi is: if so, why did the Gemara have to go through all these things? Why did the Gemara have to tell them this whole list of the smicha? Nufa and Nesachim, just say Pashut. Shlomi makes it to Beis Hamikdash and Chor doesn't, right? Why does one have to elaborate in this whole competition of 3-0 to Shlomim? Just say Pashut. Shlomim are brought, and Chor is not brought. I don't know. I don't know what Rashi has to say. That I'm definitely missing something here. Yes. That's what I'm saying. Right. No, I know that the brother Shlomim. Yeah, in other words, it's much more like they're both brought, but Shlomim gets super duper treatment. Shlomim comes to Beis Hamikdash in a limousine, 5-star. He gets the Nesachim, the Tnufa. Well, Bechor is like, okay, Bechor. Yeah, that's a difference. What did Rashi have to say, right? Lefi Rashi, we're talking Chutz Laaretz. So Bechor is Bechlal not brought. I don't know. I didn't see. I didn't. Excuse me.
And Shlomim makes no difference.
Where does it make a difference? Where?
From the chutz to Beis Hamikdash, whereas if the Beis Hamikdash was standing, the bechor born in Eretz Yisrael is more holy than coming in from the chutz.
That's not the comparison here. We're not comparing chutzot to Israel. We're comparing now bechor to shlomim. When it comes to bechor and shlomim in times of chutz laaretz, in times of Beis Hamikdash chutz laaretz, bechor is not brought, and shlomim are brought. Finished. Yeah, so why did the Gemara have to tell me the whole story of Smicha and Tzachim? It's like saying, he's a better club member because he gets a choshev seat in the club and he gets a fancy thing to wear. And the other one doesn't. But if the other one, Bechlal, is not in the club, why do you have to mention the fancy suit? The other one is Bechlal in the club. Chorn Chutzatz is not brought Bechlal, so it doesn't make sense. Let's go there. That's next year. But the fruit from Turkey is next year. Talk about it in Elul. Thank you for your patience, Rabbi Reens. Yes, I'm listening. Therefore, we reject it. It's not coming to exclude Bechor. In other words, if Shlomim are owned by the Bailim, so too Bechor all the more so is owned by the Bailim, because Bechor is of lesser kedusha. So what are we coming to exclude? Here he comes. Meiser makes his appearance in our page. The Muti Meiser. What's Meiser? Again, not Meiser that you take at home from the fruit. Meiser of what? Of the behema. Why is Meiser? Listen to this. It's holier. Wow. Meiser, in a way, is more Kodesh than Bechor. More Kodesh than Shlomim. Wow, why is that? Kenetanya. B'Bechor ne'emar loy tipode. It says by the Bechor loy tipode. It shall not be redeemed. Loy tipode, loy tifde. I think it says loy tifde. Sorry, loy tifde. You shall not redeem. And now, what does it say about the Bechor? We saw yesterday. V'nimkar tam chai. Let's say you are a kohen or you're Israel and you sell it tam chai. What does tam chai mean? No blemish, healthy and good, alive. Well, what's going to happen with it? I'll sell it to you, mister. Either the moom will come to it, and then you, as a coin, will be able to eat it, or sell it to a coin onwards, or you'll bring it to Beis Hamikdash. Maybe you want to bring a bechor to Beis Hamikdash. Yeah, there will be a stand for tourists. You came from Chutzatz, you can never bring a bechor. I'll have a bring a bechor stand. Here's a bechor, I'll sell it to you. You bring it to Beis Hamikdash, have the experience. Wow, very nice. Ubal moom. And if you have now, what about this is Chazor from yesterday, guys? It's a test now. What about a tam that's shechted? Let's say I took a tam, a very nice bechor, which is tam, no blemish whatsoever. I shechted it in my backyard in Nachal Ayalon. And then what happened? Then I sell it onwards as flesh. Well, how about that? Can I sell it? No. What will happen to me in Shamayim if I do it? Correct. Yeah, because it's chutei chutz. Something that's supposed to make it the Beis Hamikdash because it has no blemish, and I shechted it outside Beis Hamikdash. Doesn't make Nachal alone. Can be also a centimeter outside Beis Hamikdash in our bite. What do we say then? Avada, this is treif l'chatchila. Don't sell it. You have to bury it. It's also. So when can you sell a b'chor? Either tam chai, with the hope that something will happen, either based on mikdash or moom, or ubal moom chai v'shachut. Let's say my b'chor already had some kind of moom in it, some, I don't know, split in the ear, let's say, and then it's alive. What can we do with the live one, which has moom? Any coin would love it. That's great. Free money for a free gift for a coin. Yeah, I'll sell it to another yid, and that still the yid will give it to the coin. Let's say the shachut. What about shachut? I want shechted. The coin can eat. I will give it to the coin to eat. Now, soon I'm going to add something very important, and maybe I'll say it already now. Yeah. Now, b'maiser. Now let's talk about Meiser, and then we'll say something very important. B'Meiser ne'emar lo yigoel. Yeah, lo yigoel. It says about a Meiser, it should not be also like redeemed. The einonim kar, and Meiser is not sold at all, not sold at all. Lo chai, lo shochut, lo tam, lo bal mum. Wow. A Meiser is not b'chlal sold whatsoever. Meiser is not sold in any shape or form. You have Meiser. If the Meiser has no blemish, what do you do with it? Bring it where? Hekdesh. If the meiser has blemish in it, then bon appetit. But eat it yourself as a soil. You're not allowed to sell it. Why can't you sell meiser? Why can you sell b'chor not meiser? First, we have to understand that it says something very important in the Gemara, which I saw yesterday, and I forgot where. And there it says like that. There is a concept, which also Rashi mentioned in the Chumash. You're not allowed to sell b'chor and meiser midoraisa. Now we're talking midoraisa. B'chor and meiser can be sold midoraisa, but how are you supposed to sell them? You're not supposed to sell them like you sell in the market. You're not supposed to sell it in a store. You're not supposed to sell it by weight. You're only supposed to sell it at home in a more quiet manner and just by assessing the price without weighing it on the kilo or the pound or whatever. Why is that? Really, these meiser and b'chor, what are they? They are ex-kochim. They are kochim that had a moom in them. Not moom, excuse me, that had moom in them. And the moom means that now the kedusha is not there anymore. However, because the kedusha was there, the kedusha still lingers to an extent, and therefore the kedusha didn't completely leave them. You still have to treat them b'koved. Just like you have a Sefer Torah that some of the letters are missing. Would you chas v'shalom throw it in the garbage? You have more than pei hey oisios. You have more than 85 letters missing. It's Apostle Sefer Torah. Are you allowed to chas v'shalom throw it in the garbage? Can't you even say the words? Of course not. You put it in Geniza. It had kedusha. Still contains the remains of the kedusha. Same thing over here. When you have a b'chor and a meiser, and those b'chor and meiser were kadosh, and just the kedusha sort of went away because of the hole in the ear or the missing eye or something, then we say the kedusha is still there. You don't sell it like the Itlis. You sell it like a butcher, like in the market, in a way that's not covered. You sell it in a way that's mechubad, like behind closed door. Like the private club, of whatever, some very fancy kind of, business. You don't do the business of, $10 million in the middle of the street. You do it in the private bank, in the invested company, in very behind closed doors, everything very choshu. Same thing over here. That's how you're supposed to treat the b'chor and the meiser. Now, I'll tell you even more. Other kochim, let me surprise you. Other kochim, let's say shlomim. Let's say shlomim. What about shlomim? Let's say shlomim have moom in them. Shlomim have moom. If shlomim have moom, you're allowed to sell them in the market. You're allowed to sell the shlomim in the market because they have a moom. What? I just told you have to treat kochim b'choved. Why are you allowed to sell them in the market? You know why? I'll tell you why. When you sell in the market, you're going to have more people coming to buy. It's more advertised. You sell it on the weight and nobody's going to lie to you. You can make more money. So shlomim, when you sell shlomim, what happens when shlomim are actually have a hole in there, have a moom in them? What happens then? What's going to happen with the money that I make from that sale in the market? Where's the money going to go to? Ooh, no. In shlomim, as opposed to b'chor and meiser, it will go to buy other korbanos, which will brought to Hashem. So because Hashem is in the story, we say we're willing to be mevaze kochim to make more money for Beis HaMikdash. But b'chor and meiser, which are exclusively belonging to human beings, once there's a hole in the stomach, once there's something there's a moom, what's going to be with the b'chor? I sell the money I'm going to get, put it in my pocket, and the b'chor is what? The b'chor, I'm going to eat it myself. If I'm a coin, meiser, I'll eat it myself as Israel. So because Hekdesh is not making any money on it, Mimela, we said there's no redeeming. Hekdesh is not making money. You mevadze kodashim, and the only one gaining is going to be you, Mr. Human Being, mortal being. Yashvul. And then we say you don't sell it in the market, you sell it behind closed doors, even though you lose money. It's less money involved, and maybe it's not so clear the assessment of the meat and the whole thing. Nevertheless, you make less money, but you're not mevazeh the kodashim. That was the main story of the Oraisa, B'chor and Maisa. So B'chor you're allowed to sell in a way that is, very limited, possibly with a loss. But Shenken Maisa, Rabbanan made Gzeira. Maisa, who's going to get the money? Only the Israel. And not the money and the meat, only Israel. By Maisa, Rabbanan made Gzeira. Don't sell it B'chlal. I don't know what the Gzeira is about. I didn't see much enough. I saw a bit of a Gemara in the Rambam. To get the clear picture, I guess it's only Israel, and maybe you'll make a mistake. If you sell it in a way that's hidden, you may come maybe to sell it in a more public way. I'm not sure that's the reason. But Rabbanan made Gzeira in Meiser as opposed to B'chol. Meiser is only for Israel, regular guy, not even for a Kohen. There's a Gzeira, don't sell the Meiser B'chlal. 1 second. And therefore, after all said and done, we come up with something very, very weird over here. The Meiser, the Shlomim and the B'chol, which I would say are holier, the Meiser, you're allowed to sell them. You're allowed to sell them. Mimela, whose money are they? Mine, the Bailim. And Dafka, the one excluded and not considered the money of the Bailim, is the Meiser. Because Meiser is less holy, the Meiser, at the end of the day, I'm not allowed to sell it. If I'm not allowed to sell it, in other words, it's not mine. Meiser is not mine. I'm only allowed to eat it once there's a chol, once there's a moom, or bring it to Beis Mikdash when it's healthy. I have no other option. There's no other thing I can do with it. And therefore, Dafka Meiser, which is osir for sale with the Rabbanon, but at the end of the day, is osir to be sold by me. Meiser is not considered as mine. And Dafka Meiser is considered moment gavor of Hashem and not considered as my money, because at the end of the day, my hands are tied and I can't sell it. Mela Meiser comes out to be the one that's excluded and not considered moment bailim. Bam, bam, bam. Yes, I think it was. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, you're being very nice in your middle. Ravina matni la seifa. Ravina mentions the same words we just said now, the same game we just played between the 3 korbanos, Shlomim, the competition, who's holier than who? Holier than now. Shlomim, B'chor, and Meiser, the same idea Ravina connects, like L'Avdil to pin the tail to the donkey, he plays it with a seifa. Ravina matni la seifa. What does it mean? What is the seifa of the brisa that we started today? We started off today with the brisa. What was the end of the brisa? Abba Yosef ben Dostai Oimel, Loi Omer ben Azai, Ela b'Bchor bilvad. Ben Azai, when he spoke about Kodashim Kalim belonging to the owner, he only spoke about B'chor only. Who are you coming to exclude when you say only B'chor belongs to the Bailim and others are not? Who are the others that are not? If you want to exclude Shlomim and say the B'chor belongs to the Bailim, but Shlomim are holier, and Shlomim, because they're holier, maybe those Shlomim belongs really to Hashem. We say no. Hashta, now we're going to do just the opposite comparison. Uma B'chor shekodesh mirechem. B'chor is holier than Shlomim in one respect. B'chor is kodesh mirechem. What does that mean? Once it left its mother's womb, the rechem is kodesh in 1 second without having what? Automatic, right away from birth. He was born that way. And yet we say that the B'chor is considered his money of the owner, and it's not, it's unholy enough to be considered the money of the owner of the Bailim Israel. Shlomim Ibayet. Shlomim, the kedusha came later. The baby was, I don't know, half a year old, and then one sunny day, he decided to be Chayzer B'tshuva, makes it Shlomim. Then I would say B'chor is holier than Shlomim. By the way, don't get confused. Before we said Shlomim are holier, because Shlomim have the 5-star treatment in Beis Mikdash, Nesochim, Pnufa, and Smicha. Meshek, they're both true. Both B'chor and Shlomim, that's why I see they both have a more Kodesh part. So at the end of the day, they're both considered to be the same level of kedusha. And if you say B'chor is considered as the Bailims, Shlomim is also the Bailims. If Shlomi belongs to the Bailim, B'chor is the same. Which one is excluded? Again, just like before. Like we said before, Maisa is the one that's holier than both. The smallest kid in the class, he overtook everybody. In the Tanya, as we just explained. You're allowed to sell it in all different conditions. 3 out of 4 conditions you're allowed to sell it. The only condition, the only combination that's also to sell is if you shechted it Tomim outside Beis Hekdesh, because that's an Isur Chorus, and you have to bury it. All other three options, you're allowed to sell it. How are you selling it? Shh, behind closed doors, in a way that's like, you may lose only in your house. Maybe you can't even advertise the sale. I don't know. Make it more hashash without weighing it. You're losing on it, but that's a respectable way of selling it. The Meiser is different. Meiser midarabon and mid gzeira. The only one gaining from the sale is Israel. Don't sell it bichlal. By the way, there's one case you're allowed to sell a Meiser, and that is Yesoimim. Remember the little poor Yesoimim, which we see every once in a while, that the father owes money and have kalka and they have people. So if Yesoimim inherited the Meiser, they got Meiser, Bemis Meiser, they were Yerush Bemis Meiser, which let's say has moom in it, yeah? So they can sell it. Rabbana were not gozer and Yesoimim, I guess, because they need the money, and because Yesoimim are usually, people tend to take advantage of them, so Yesoimim have special permission. Rabbana were not gozer, they're allowed to sell it behind closed doors and without using the scales. But in any event, Meiser is in a way, I wouldn't say it's holier, but it's less owned by the Bailim. Because at the end of the day, you can't sell it for whichever reason, it's not yours. Something you can never sell or mekadesh a woman or do, you can't go beyond your borders, is not really considered yours. And therefore the Meiser, yet again, we say the Meiser is the one that's considered to be not the money of the Bailim, but it's considered to be the money of Kodesh Baruch Hu. It's not considered as yours. And if a show gored it, you're potter. The Baal show is potter because it's not yours. Frag the Gemara, there is a problem here. The second statement, if you notice, the Seifa didn't say just lemiuti. It says b'chol bilvad. Abba Yossi ben Dostoy Omer Lomer ben Ezel b'chol bilvad. So now the Gemara is asking the question, you're telling me that you're coming to exclude Meiser, but not to exclude Shlomim? Doesn't make sense. It says b'chol bilvad ka'omar. He said, Abba Yossi ben Dostoy said, only B'chol comes to exclude who? Everybody else. B'chol only. Did you hear me? Only. Only means not Shlomim and not Meiser. You have a good question that B'chol and Shlomim should be of the same level. It's a very nice question. But at the end of the day, he said B'chol Bilvad, meaning the only one that is considered to be the one owned by the Baalim is the B'chol. Shlomim are not considered to be his, neither is the Meiser. Only B'chol is considered the Meiser, but that's difficult. Kama Kasha, we remain in a question. It's difficult on that Nekuda. Why did he say B'chol Bilvad? And we remain in a question, and that's also okay. Now we're done with this Mahalach in the Sugya. Now we're going back a few stages ago. We're going back a few Mahalachim, back to square one. And remember how we started the whole sugya? How did this whole sugya of Kodashim and B'chol and Meiser, how did it all begin? Where did it all emanate from? We started off by saying that the Mishnah said, if my show gored whose show, another show that has no me'ilah, there is no me'ilah, then I'm chayev. Mashma, if it goes something that has me'ilah, I'm potu. So we said, what do you mean there is me'ilah, there isn't me'ilah? It don't mean just to say Kodashim and not Kodashim. Kodashim me'ilah applies to my money. There's no me'ilah; it's just regular money. So why can't you just speak normal and say Kodashim, come to exclude Kodashim? And then we said no. You have Kodashim that are not with me'ilah, Kodashim Kalim, and yet they're considered to be owned by the owner. We found that gray area, which are called Kodashim Kalim, either B'chol or Shlomim or both. We said it's something owned by the owner, but it's Kodashim. We found that gray area, and on those things, you are chayiv if you gored them. Now Rava comes and explains the Mishnah differently, in a more simple way, in a way. Rava Omar, he's rereading now the Mishnah. He's taking us back to the original text of the Mishnah that we were grappling with. My nechosim she'en ben me'ilah. You know what nechosim she'en ben me'ilah means? Nechosim she'en ben din me'ilah. Nechosim where me'ilah would not apply to, which means my ninu the hediot. Very, very simple. Nobody's talking here about nechosim that are Kodashim Kalim and the whole story. Nechosim she'en ben me'ilah is just a synonym of nechosim belonging to Joe Shmo Bo, regular nice Jewish man. That's all. Nechosim she'en ben me'ilah is just the way to say nechosim of regular guy. Instead of saying tzvi, I say the guy from Cherry Hill. Same thing. I'm just talking in hints. I'm talking in riddles instead of talking directly. But that's all I mean. Meaning, our Mishnah is not bound now to Rabbi Yosef Glili. You understand what's going on here? We're not already mechuyev to Rabbi Yosef Glili with the Kodashim Kalim, and yeah, there's no meila, but they belong to me. Frag the Gemara, the question which we've been asking all the time: the hediot? Why can't you speak normal then? Just say hediot. Why does Mishnah have to say in Chosim She'en Bein Nehila? Why do you have to say Tzeri Hill? Say Tzvi. Why can't you just say hediot? Say the regular word. Kasha. Kasha. It's difficult. We remain in the question on Rove, and that's it. Second time already that we remain in the question, and we live with it. Now we come to a whole new story. Now we come to the opposite case from before. Now we come to a very, very fascinating sugya. Up until now, we spoke about what happens if my regular shore, which is very unholy, regular cutesy show, started goring, not so cute anymore, started goring my friend's shore. And it came out that my friend's shore, the one gored, the victim is a behema of shlomim, of bchor. According to B'yesei Glili, I got to pay. According to Rabbanon, I don't have to pay, right? Very nice and simple. Now, what happens if it's the other way? Let's say the bchor that is shlomim, or bchor, or meiser, or whatever, is destined to go to Beis Hekdesh. So excited about the trip to go to Beis Hekdesh, he starts goring everybody. Or maybe he feels holier than now. He says, I'm a shlomim shor, I'm going to gore everybody else. I'm more of a Rosh Yeshiva than they are. Okay, B'kitzur meiser, the question is, what happens if a show that is a show shlomim, assuming it belongs to me partially at least, now that shore goes crazy and starts goring other shvomim, other oxen. What would be over there? What? Off with his head. So now that's Henry VIII. So now the Zach is like. Before we continue, let me explain to you that really everybody agrees that only one part of the show will definitely go to the Mizbeach. Which part is that? It's Kodashim Kalim, Shlomim. Which part goes to the Mizbeach? The kishkalach, intestines, the liver, the kidneys, those intestines, the pigs, the thick, everything goes to the Mizbeach. The stomach, that goes to the Mizbeach. That's a significant part of the behema. So now with my show that contains kedusha and contains chulin, because at the end of the day, if we look far enough, we know that at the end of the day, everything else besides the actual imurim will go to human beings, either just the Kohen by B'chol, just Yisrael b'Meiser, or by Shlomim Toida that goes where? Half. I mean, Chazev Shok and the meat to the Bailim. At the end of the day, there are Keilu two forces that gore the show. When that show this morning gored its friend or its enemy, really there were Keilu two parties that were participating there. There are different ways to look at it, and that's the philosophy now. It's Keilu Hekdesh and Chulin were goring together. United we stand. United forces, united nation. You have here the stomach that belongs to Kadosh Baruch Hu, for sure. That part, eventually will go to the moom, will go to the Mizbeach, and there's the rest of the body that belongs to me. And together, 1, 2, 3, they gored it together, they gored Mr. Little Shore over there. So now the question is, how do you assess the nezek? How do you actually pay for the nezek? Okay, let's assume it was a shor tam that gored another shor. The shor tam has to pay half, only half. 1 second, Baruch. And how does the shor tam pay? Migufoi, which means, let's say my shor is only worth 100 something, 100, and it gored another shor that is worth 400. How much do you have to pay? What? No. My shor is, maybe if you want to know, my shor is worth 100. It gored a shor that's worth 400. Now it's a tam. The tam has to pay out of 400 how much? 200. Tam is always 50% reduction. End of season sale, 50% off, that's always the show. That's, okay. That's the women who go to the shops all the time. So now 50% is what? Off. But now my show owes 200, so to speak. The entire shore is only worth 100. How much do you have to pay? I pay 100. I pay as much as my shore is worth. And I say, take my shore. You don't like it, shecht it, do whatever you want, or take something equivalent to the show. And that's it. I don't owe him another 100 from cash. In other words, there are two rules here. I only owe half the price, and I only owe whatever is within realm of value of my own show. Migufoy.
Whichever is lesser.
What?
Whichever is lesser.
Yes. Well, as we see now, yeah, l'choyer. Yes. Okay. If there's a quick question, we're just about to start something now.
The of the shiur.
Amar Biaba, says Rabbi Abba, Shlomim sheziku, the Shlomim that was mazik, person of the Shlomim frolicking around, and then all of a sudden started goring someone. Goyvim ibsaron, ve'enu goyvim imurein. You only collect from the meat and not from the imurim. What does that mean? I would say like this. Let's say my show gored, a show that's very expensive, that's worth 800. Wow. I owe how much? 400. Okay? I owe 400. Let's say my show is worth, listen to this. My show is worth 200. Listen to this. 200. 50 is the imurim are worth 50. I went to the professional assessor. They're worth 50 the imurim and 150 all the rest. So really, this show consists of 50 imurim and 150 regular everything else. Now, I'm not going to pay the entire 200. I owe even more. I owe 400. I'm not going to pay the whole amount. Why? Because those 50 are not mine. They belong to Imurim. They belong to Hashem. And therefore, I don't have to pay from that. I'll pay 150, and the 50 of Imurim are not part of the equation. Frag the Gemara, Pshita, of course. Imurim the Gavoya Salki. The Imurim go to Gavoa. Imurim, of course, are out of the equation. They're not mine. They go to Gavoa. If you talk about the actual Imurim, excuse the joke, nobody's going to take the Imurim also and say, hey, this belongs to me because he gored my show. Like, hello, there's a gvul, yeah? And even if you say it's not the money doesn't belong to me. Of course, it's not even a Hekdesh. The Hekdesh is as follows. Listen to this. Okay, here I worked on the equation. It's not so hard. Of course, I don't have to pay from the Imurim themselves, neither by body, not by money. But even when I calculate the half nezek from the flesh, from the boso, from the flesh that belongs to the person, I don't take the imurim into account. Listen to the equation. Please be quiet for the next 2 minutes and let me concentrate on what I say. Okay, now the story is like this. The show in total is worth how much? 200. My show is 200. It's 200. And it gored a shore that's worth 200. How much do I owe the other party? 100. 200 divided to 2, half, 50%. I owe the other party 100. My shore is worth 200. No, so give 100. I'll tell you, I'll only give you 75. And that's halacha. Why 75? I'll tell you one, it's not my bad math for change. The story is as follows. When I calculate my shore's value, when I start the calculation of 50%, and Gufoy, I automatically take out 50 out of the equation. The 50 aren't mine, mister. Even from Yosef Glili, the imurim themselves, when you focus on them, they're not mine. My show is worth 150 only. And that's the Hekdesh over here. 150 divided to 2, isn't it 75? Am I wrong somewhere? 75, right? Mimela, I'm going to pay 75. You're going to scream at me and say, what? 75? You owe me 100. I'll say, true, I owe you another 25. Go to Kodesh Baruch Hu. He owes 50 shekels out of my whole thing, and he'll give you 25. In fact, he won't. Because Hekdesh doesn't owe you money. Because I partner with Kodesh Baruch Hu, the imurim are his, and Kodesh Baruch Hu is not a paying partner. Kodesh Baruch Hu, but in this case, yeah, the Hekdesh doesn't give the money. I'll pay small, Rosh Katan, I'll pay only 75 out of my part, which is a total 150. And the 50 are out of the equation, and that's a Hekdesh. That is a Hekdesh, or so we think it's a Hekdesh, because we only take the 50% migufoy, the lower one of the two, and chinami, the lesser one. We say, I start calculating for 150, and I only have to pay you half. Half of what? Half of only of what I have. All I have is 150, and that's a Hekdesh, the 50 that belongs to Hashem. At the very beginning of the equation, were deleted right from the beginning. Mimela, we come out with a 25 shekel difference, 25 whatever difference, and that's what we're saying here. That's what we say. Now the Gemara claims, and unfortunately we don't have much time, we can ask a question at 10, let's do till 10:25 today, or 10:23. Pshita, frag the Gemara, says the Gemara, even that is too simple. Even that the Gemara wants to say is what? Is not a Hekdesh. Why? I have to give an introduction now. There's a machloekes in daf nun something, nun dalet, nun vav, nun gimel. There is a machloekes between Rav Nosson and Chachomim about partners in crime. What happens when a show pushed his friend, the other show, into a pit bull? He pushed the bull into a pit. One bull pushed the other until he fell into the pit, and there he found his death. And then what? Then there's a shaila who has to pay the victim's owner. Why? Is it the show or the boar or both? It's not so simple. Chachamim say the show has to pay half. The show did half the job, but to quote the 3-year-old people, the bigger half. In other words, the bigger responsibility is on the show, says Rashi there in Daf, he says Rashi there, because he started the nezik. Botham yikoro azli. Rabbanon go, but botham yikoro. It's kilo the shore did everything, and the shore has to pay whatever, the shore has to pay everything, not really everything, soon we'll see the idea. And by the time he has to pay half, okay, and the Baal Bo doesn't have to pay. How much the Baal Shor has to pay? Here Rashi says the Baal Shor only has to pay half. Baal Bo pays 0. Baal Bo has no responsibility. Baal Bo, because although it happened in his bow, he would say he pushed him anyways. They're fighting, he pushed him, he used my bow for his purposes. But really the main culprit here is Baal Shor, and then Baal Shor has to pay, and he either has to pay half, because the other half is Baal Bo, who doesn't pay. It's a very, very big paradox, which I don't understand, but that's what they're saying. And if the show tam, he only pays a quarter, because he has to pay half of the half. And the other 3/4, we say the Baal show is losing. Avnosen says, Mapitom. Avnosen says the Baal Bo also has to pay. The Baal Bo has to pay like this, either half, Baal show half, Baal Bo the other half. Or if the show is tam, then the show tam has to pay a quarter, a half of his half nezek, and Baal Bo has to pay half. And one, imagine yourself like a circle, 1/4 of the circle is empty. The Baal Bo doesn't have to compensate for that. Baal Shor has to pay half because he's a tam, and Baal Bo has to pay for his entire half. So half Baal Bo, quarter Baal Shor tam, and 1/4 0, empty. That's what Reb Nosson says. And Chachamim say Baal Bo is completely free. But Reb Nosson puts more weight on Baal Bo because he says, and we'll see later on, at the end of the day, the bow was also culprit. If not for your bow, that's where I found him dead. At the end of the day, the Maki Bepatish, the final blow was your bow. Who's more choshu, the beginning or the end? That's the question here. Yeah, Chachamim say the beginning, Reb Nosson says the end. That's a more general way of looking at it. Tosha says over there, Gemara has the kedusha kimisha so kuloi. Tosha over there says that Reb Nosson, you finished it off, you have the bigger responsibility. Okay, we don't have time now, but Lemaisa, the Gemara is going to compare tomorrow, Mirz Hashem, the partnership between Baal Shor and Baal Bo will be compared to the partnership between the Kadosh Baruch Hu's Hekdesh and me in the show going together. And how do we make the cheshbon? And there's going to be difficulties on both sides. Shkoyach, no, he has thing for a long time. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Atzlacho Abba. Thank you. Yes.
Push that money.